Hey everybody, today I wanted to play you some testimony that CompTIA's representatives gave against the right to repair bill in Maine. Now, this is offensive to me for two separate reasons. The first reason is that the entire purpose of CompTIA certifications appears to be to help people get entry-level jobs. They're famous for the A+ and the Net Plus certifications. And here they are lobbying against a bill that would actually help decrease the barriers to independent repair. There are lots of people that would like to get into the repair business that consider it difficult due to the complete lack of support, the ridiculous supply chain, the hoops that you have to jump through to get any sort of schematics or documentation. And if this were made more accessible, this would mean that there would be a lower barrier to entry for people who want to get into the field, who are qualified to enter this field, and they are supporting that barrier existing. The second reason that I think that CompTIA doing this is distasteful is because they already have a bit of a reputation for creating useless certifications just to take money from people who are trying to get entry-level jobs. So what do I mean by that? I actually took the A+ certification test several years ago, back when I thought I would like to become a Lenovo authorized repair center, back when I thought that was actually a good idea. One of the questions in the test was regarding how many FireWire 400 devices that I could daisy chain. I want you to think about this, that a port that stopped being included on most computers around 2007, maybe 2008, had a question on a test that was designed for people who repair computers professionally. They actually thought that this question mattered. They included these pieces of useful trivia, and they charge people hundreds of dollars to take tests so that they can confirm that they are properly educated and up-to-date on useless trivia. What I see CompTIA as at this point in 2020 is a troll toll, a rent seeker in the entire process. I don't see them adding value. I simply see them extracting value from people based on a brand name and the fact that many human resources departments aren't aware of how useless the A+ is in modern day society, and also in lobbying against these bills, I see them as simply increasing the barrier of entry so that they still can seem like they have a place in the marketplace, and I think it's disgusting. Now, before I play the testimony, I would also like to say thank you very much to both Joseph Perry and Jim Handy. Those were the two representatives that were actively listening to the entirety of my testimony and everybody else's testimony. They were not checking their cell phones. They were not yawning or rolling their eyes. They engaged me with good questions. They asked about how this bill would affect local businesses, and they smiled very happily in support of the bill when I explained how it would. And they also asked me questions that would help them be able to push the bill along, because they're actually interested in essentially steel-manning this bill so that it's able to get greater support. And I included email addresses for them in the description down below. There were over 12 lobbyists for multi-million-dollar companies that showed up that day in opposition of the bill. And the only people who showed up in favor were myself, an out-of-town New Yorker, and one consumer from the state. And you have to imagine how intimidating that can be to a small legislative committee. So I think that sending these two gentlemen emails, thanking them for their time, thanking them for listening, and explaining why you find this bill to be important in a polite manner would really go a long way towards a bill like this being considered and moved forward. So I really do ask that you do take a little bit of time out to send them an email and just thank them for the time that they took today. That being said, let's get to the testimony.
Anyone else that wishes to testify in favor of LD 1977? All right, seeing none. We will now open it up to people that wish to testify in opposition to LD 1977.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Ferdinand. I'm a lawyer with Eaton Peabody. I'm here today on behalf of our client CompTIA, which is a national organization representing computing technology. We passed out a letter from a number of associations that represent a lot of electronic device companies. Many of the representatives are here today. I'm just going to lead off with the outline of the points in that letter, and then they're going to pick up with more depth. So there's going to be people here you can ask questions for, but I'm probably not the right one for that particular question. A lot of the issues that I've heard come up today, I think they can answer.
I like here how at least he is honest and upfront with admitting that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
As was said, this is a model legislation that's been circulating around the country, and no state has adopted this legislation.
I really do wonder each time I hear this if this is what people used to argue when it came to ending prohibition or ending slavery. Well, no other states decided to do it, so why should you? There's no actual argument in there when they say that no other state has done it, but rather an implication that you are doing something that may get you in trouble because you're all alone, and you don't want to be all alone while doing something new. Now, do you? When there's a bunch of suits in the room. It's meant to intimidate. It's not an actual argument.
And the reasons for that is it mandates proprietary information being given to anyone without any certification or training and without any accountability protections.
The issue of accountability is a red herring, in my opinion, because every city that I've been to has some sort of Department of Consumer Affairs or licensing division that deals with businesses that wish to offer these services to customers. So in my city, there's a Department of Consumer Affairs, and I need to pay about $350 to get a license for home appliance and electronics service dealer. And I need to present this license at my business, and the license number needs to be on all of my receipts so that if I do something wrong, my customers can complain to the Department of Consumer Affairs, and if I don't resolve their complaints in a speedy and satisfactory manner, they can revoke my license, making it illegal for me to do repairs in the city of New York. Now, when I had to apply for that license, they asked me many questions regarding criminal background. They also had me submit my fingerprints. I am accountable to the city and to the state after I apply for a license with the Department of Consumer Affairs. The reason that this bill and no other repair bill discusses accountability is because that accountability is already built into the law to every single city in the United States, to my knowledge. If I do something wrong, it's not the right to repair bill that I have to deal with, it's my city's licensing agencies. Now, if somebody works on their own device and messes up their own device, that has nothing to do with city licensing agencies because you have the freedom to mess up your own personal property.
And so it puts a lot of things at risk. The first is the customer's data. We're not talking about brake jobs on a car here. We're talking about devices that are connected to the internet that contain the consumer's data, the relationships with other people in the world. So everybody's data can be put at risk when these devices are accessed.
Because the device is a connected device, it's not only the customer's data that's put at risk, it's everyone's data in the world. So if you submit your phone for repair, it's not just your data that's at risk, it's everyone's data in the world. I have no words for this. I'm honestly running out of words for the things that come out of the mouths of these lobbyists at this point. I really am. Now, when it comes to data, how about we talk about all the customers that are unable to get their data back because the manufacturer does not help them get their data back when the device dies and actively works against repair shops that try to fix the devices so that they can provide data recovery services for their customers?
The safety risk that we've heard a little bit about that. Untrained people getting into the mechanics of these devices can be a dangerous exercise. And it's not something you want people to do that aren't trained to do it.
The repair business currently is estimated to be over $3 billion per year. Needless to say, people are going to continue working on these devices regardless of whether the bill is passed. So there is a fallacy in place there that if this bill is released, people are going to work on phones that shouldn't. The reality is that people are working on these devices anyway. Wouldn't it be beneficial to give them access to parts and manuals so that they're able to do it more properly? Further, he continues to bring up dangers without citing specific actual examples, which in my opinion is fear-mongering, or FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
It undermines the business relationship of the people who are certified. And a lot of people in this room are certified to fix these devices, and those are the people that have taken the time and expense to do that. And this bill would overcome that by giving the same information and parts to people who have not gone through that training, and thereby setting up this imbalance and unfair balance between people who are authorized and people who are not authorized to do these repairs. And I don't think this really recognizes the range of repairs and refurbishment options that are available today. When you get your a phone or any other device, you have a lot of options now and we can talk more about that. And that leads into the e-waste discussion. Phones were part of the e-waste bill in Maine. Maine has a very strong e-waste program, but the phones were taken out of that because of these other options for recycling, refurbishment, repair that are in the system. And the phones weren't showing up in that e-waste system. So, as I said, more than 20 states have already reviewed this legislation, and no bills have passed. A lot of it's because it raises a lot of these issues and creates more questions than it solves. So for these reasons, we're asking you not to pass this bill. And if you want to look more into how to make certified repair more accessible in the state of Maine, or is there a problem for accessing certified repair shops in Maine, that's something you can explore. But this bill really gets ahead of that, and it raises a lot of security problems that we would be very concerned about if you pass this bill.
Like what? Let's see if the high-priced CompTIA lawyer is able to cite any of the security problems since he seems so sure of it.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Ferdinand. Any questions from members of the committee? Representative Austin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill, in the light of what you just said, would it be an untold task to figure out what could actually be allowed to be worked on?
Right.
Versus...
Right. I think you're going to hear, because we heard a lot about the screens and things like that.
Well, and the proprietary and the...
Right.
And the
Right. I think you will hear that the screen issue is that you're hearing anecdotes from before. I don't think that is much of an issue today as it was. You can get your screen repaired and not have that warranty issue as much. So I think that's a good question for the people who are going to come behind me. The batteries, lithium batteries do present hazardous chemical and I don't want to say explosion, but heat and issues. They're hazardous materials. So you have to be careful with them. And opening a phone isn't something you just do readily. And so I think you have to be careful about which types of repairs that you want to allow just anybody to do without any training or certification.
I think the word here that should scare people, because it's very telling, is the word allow. What this bill asks is for manuals and parts to be available for people to purchase. However, in the absence of these manuals and parts being available for people to purchase, there are individuals who have created their own supply chain. Now, again, I can't say exactly how good the parts are from any of these particular supply chains. It is hit or miss, but if you go on eBay, you can find a battery for virtually any phone. You can pay by credit card and have it delivered to you, totally legal. So when he says we shouldn't be allowing people to do that, that's different from saying we would prefer that our manufacturers not sell those parts to you. The language there is very telling, because when he says that, he wants to exercise control, in my opinion, over the product that you purchased and own. Just to be very, very clear here, even if this bill failed in every single state, you would still be allowed to fix your own device. It would just be much more difficult to find parts and manuals in order to do so. But this bill is not about allowing you to fix it. You are still allowed to work on it. And the language that they use there is a very interesting Freudian slip, because what it tells me is that these companies, if they had it their way, would be totally fine with disallowing you from working on your own device, even if you were able to locate aftermarket parts and do it on your own. And that is something that should scare anybody that cares about their right to personal property and ownership. Now, needless to say, I have done videos in the past where I tried using a sharp piece of metal as well as a hammer to try and rip the battery out of an iPhone 6. This was a while ago. I was wearing a helmet and a visor and everything, and I ripped the crap out of that thing, and the battery did not blow up. It did not explode, because this is something that occurs in literally probably 1 in every 1 million repairs, if even. And if that occurs even 1 in a million times, they are going to bring it up at every hearing like this is something that will happen every day. And it just doesn't.
Very good. Yeah, follow up, Representative Austin.
And just repeat again, nobody, to your knowledge, has accepted this particular, not even California?
No.
Not even California?
Not even California. No, and you looked at this bill is on their website. It's the same bill. I mean, they're going around the country with the same bill. So.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Ferdinand, for being here.
Yep.
Anyone else who wishes to testify in opposition to LD 1977?
As I've said previously, I showed up as a strange, random out-of-towner in support of the bill. In addition to me, there was one other person who was a consumer in the state that signed in support of the bill. After we spoke in support of the bill, about 12 lobbyists showed up in suits supporting multi-million-dollar companies, saying why the bill was a bad idea and fear-mongering in detail, whether they were large companies like CompTIA or people from the CTA or CTIA or just dealerships that didn't want to let go of, at least in my opinion, the money that they get from maintaining these devices at premium prices. There were a lot of people showing up to speak against this bill. And I think it would be very, very helpful if you email the two representatives that asked the best questions of me and the other people who spoke in support of the bill. Those were Joseph Perry and Jim Handy. I provided their emails below. And if you're able to take even a teeny bit of time out of your day to tell them that you are thankful that they took the time to listen to us, to have this committee, this hearing, and to explain to them the importance of the bill and why you think it's good to support it, it might make them feel a little bit more comfortable in passing the bill. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I hope you learned something.